The mop bucket rolled across the polished floor of Meridian Prep Academy as 17-year-old Kellen Brewster pushed it down the hallway, his worn sneakers squeaking against the marble. It was 6:47 a.m., and the prestigious school was still mostly empty except for the early arriving faculty members who barely glanced his way. Dr. Vivian Ashworth, the newly appointed head of the physics department, hurried past him with her designer heels clicking authoritatively. She paused, turned back, and called out, "Excuse me, young man." Kellen stopped, straightening his shoulders. "Yes, ma'am." "The quantum physics lab on the third floor, when was it last cleaned? The equipment is extremely sensitive, and I need to ensure proper protocols are being followed." A slow smile spread across Kellen's face. "Which specific equipment are you referring to, Dr. Ashworth? The quantum entanglement chamber, the photon manipulation array, or perhaps the temporal displacement field generator?" Dr. Ashworth's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me. How do you know about the lab hasn't been cleaned in exactly 7 hours?" Kellen continued, his voice gaining confidence. "But that's intentional. The atmospheric particulate levels need to remain within specific parameters for the quantum field stabilizers to function properly. Any disruption could cause cascade failures in the probability matrix calculations." The physics professor stared at him, her mouth slightly agape. Who are you?" "Kellen Brewster. I'm a student here." He gestured to his clothes, a simple black t-shirt and jeans that looked more like janitorial attire than student uniform. "I know I don't look like your typical Meridian Prep student, but I assure you, I belong here." Dr. Ashworth's face flushed red. "I apologize. I just assumed that the black kid with the mop bucket was the janitor." Kellen's tone remained polite, but carried an edge. "It's not the first time, and it won't be the last. But here's the thing. Dr. Ashworth, at Quantum Lab you're so concerned about, I designed it, I built it, and I've been maintaining it for the past 2 years. That's impossible. The lab cost over $3 million and required a team of 18 months of work, 47 different vendors, and approval from the State Education Board," Kellen finished. "I know, because I wrote the proposal that got it approved. I also know that the resonance frequency calibration has been off by 0.3 Hz since last Tuesday, which is why your quantum coherence experiments have been failing." Dr. Ashworth's professional composure cracked. "How could you possibly know that?" Kellen pulled out his phone and showed her a complex app interface filled with real-time data streams. "Because I monitor every system in that lab remotely. The quantum field generators, the particle accelerator, the magnetic containment fields, they're all linked to my personal network. This is impossible. You're just a student." "I'm a student who happens to have patents on 3 different quantum computing algorithms and 2 pending applications for temporal mechanics theories," Kellen said, his voice growing stronger. "I'm also the student who's been single-handedly keeping this school's entire physics program relevant, while everyone assumes I'm here on some diversity scholarship." Dr. Ashworth's face went pale. "I had no idea. The previous department head never mentioned. Dr. Pemberton retired last month without telling you about the wunderkind who's been making your department look good." Kellen chuckled. "That sounds about right. He was always better at taking credit than giving it." The hallway had begun to fill with other faculty members, drawn by the raised voices. Kellen noticed their curious stares and whispered conversations. He'd been the subject of speculation before, but this felt different. "Mr. Brewster," Dr. Ashworth said, her voice now respectful, "I think we need to have a proper conversation about your contributions to our program." "I think we do too," Kellen replied. "Because what you don't know yet is that 3 days ago, I made a breakthrough that's going to change everything. The quantum lab isn't just a teaching tool. Anymore it's become something that could revolutionize human understanding of space and time itself." Dr. Ashworth's eyes widened. "What kind of breakthrough?" Kellen's smile turned mysterious. The kind that's about to put Meridian Prep Academy on the map for reasons no one could have imagined. The quantum physics lab hummed with an energy that seemed to make the air itself vibrate. Dr. Ashworth followed Kellen through the pristine white corridors, her heels clicking against the specialized flooring designed to minimize electromagnetic interference. The lab was unlike anything she'd seen at other institutions. Every surface gleamed with purpose, every piece of equipment positioned with mathematical precision. I designed this room using principles from theoretical physics that most universities don't even teach yet, Kellen explained as he led her to the central console. The entire space exists in a controlled quantum bubble where the laws of physics become ... flexible. That's impossible, Dr. Ashworth whispered, but her voice lacked conviction. The readings on the various displays showed energy signatures that defied her. Understanding, Kellen's fingers danced across a holographic interface that materialized at his touch. 3 years ago, I was that kid everyone assumed was here because of affirmative action. My father cleans office buildings. My mother works 2 jobs at the hospital. But I've been obsessed with quantum mechanics since I was 12. How did you learn all this? MIT's open courseware, library databases, and a lot of sleepless nights, Kellen replied. When I started at Meridian Prep, I realized they had the budget, but not the vision. So I wrote a proposal disguised as a student project. Made it seem like I was just the messenger for some fictional professor's grant application. Dr. Ashworth watched in amazement as the quantum field generators began to activate. You've been running this entire operation by yourself. For 2 years, the previous department head was happy to take credit for the grants and accolades. He never actually came down here, said the technical aspects were beyond his administrative scope. The central chamber began to glow with an otherworldly blue light. Inside, space itself seemed to bend and twist. Kellen, what exactly are you showing me? 4 days ago, I achieved something that theoretical physicists have been trying to do for decades, he said, his voice filled with quiet pride. I created a stable temporal displacement field. Not time travel, that's still impossible, but temporal observation. We can look into the past and future with perfect clarity. Dr. Ashworth stumbled backward. That's Nobel Prize level physics. That's world-changing. It gets better. Kellen manipulated the interface, and suddenly, the room filled with translucent figures, ghostly images of people moving through the space. These are temporal echoes. Every conversation that ever happened in this room, every experiment, every moment of discovery, I can replay any of them. The figures solidified into recognizable forms. Dr. Ashworth gasped as she saw herself, from 20 minutes earlier, walking into the lab for the first time. But there were other figures, 2 older conversations, meetings she'd never been part of. My God, she breathed. You've been recording everything, not recording accepting. Time isn't linear the way we think it is. With enough quantum manipulation, you can observe any moment that occurred in a specific location. Kellen's expression grew serious. But 3 days ago, I discovered something that changed everything. He adjusted the temporal field, and suddenly they were looking at a conversation from the previous week. Dr. Ashworth watched in horror as she saw the previous department head, Dr. Pemberton, speaking with the school's board of directors. The quantum lab was a waste of resources, the temporal echo of Dr. Pemberton was saying. The student who proposed it has potential, but he's clearly out of his depth. I recommend we scale back the program and reallocate the funding to more practical applications. But the lab is producing remarkable results, one board member replied. Results that I've been carefully managing and interpreting. Echo continued. The boy doesn't understand the implications of what he's stumbled upon. It's better if we maintain proper oversight. Dr. Ashworth's face flushed with anger. He was stealing your credit. Worse than that, Kellen said grimly. Watch this. The temporal field shifted to show another conversation from last month. This time, Dr. Pemberton was speaking with representatives from Nexus Dynamics, a major defense contractor. The quantum technologies the student has developed have significant military applications, Pemberton was saying. If Meridian Prep were to form a partnership with Nexus, we could monetize these discoveries while maintaining control over the research. And the student, one of the Nexus representatives asked, he's 17 and has no legal claim to the patents. The school owns all intellectual property developed on campus. By the time he graduates, we'll have secured the commercial rights. Dr. Ashworth's hands clenched into fists. That's theft. That's monstrous. It gets worse, Kellen said quietly. Show them the conversation from yesterday. The temporal field revealed Dr. Pemberton's final meeting with the board before his retirement. I've structured the transition to ensure the new department head won't discover the full scope of the student's capabilities. As far as she knows, the lab is a standard educational facility. Meanwhile, Nexus Dynamics will quietly assume control of the research. But what about the student? A board member asked. He'll graduate in June and move on to whatever college. We'll accept him. The real value of his work will remain with the institution where it belongs. The temporal field faded, leaving Dr. Ashworth and Kellen alone in the quietly humming lab. The silence stretched between them as the implications sank in. They tried to steal everything, Dr. Ashworth said finally. Your work, your discoveries, your future. Tried and nearly succeeded, Kellen replied. But they made one critical mistake. What's that? Kellen's smile was sharp as a blade. They assumed I was just a smart kid who stumbled onto something beyond my understanding. They never realized I was smart enough to stay 3 steps ahead of them. The next morning, Kellen arrived at school to find his locker surrounded by federal agents. Students whispered and pointed as Agent Callista Reed, a stern woman with silver hair and penetrating eyes, approached him. Mr. Brewster, I'm Agent Reed with the Department of Energy. We need to speak with you about your quantum research. Kellen's expression remained calm. I assume this is about the Nexus Dynamics contract. Agent Reed's eyebrows rose. You know about that. I know about a lot of things, Kellen replied, including the fact that Nexus Dynamics has been under federal investigation for unauthorized weapons development. Interesting timing for a partnership with a high school physics program. Mr. Brewster, we have reason to believe that sensitive quantum technologies have been developed at this facility without proper government oversight. You're absolutely right, Kellen said, surprising her. Would you like to see the full scope of what's been happening here? Agent Reed followed Kellen to the quantum lab, where Dr. Ashworth was already waiting. The physicist looked haggard, as if she'd been up all night processing the revelations from the previous day. Agent Reed, Dr. Ashworth said, I need to report serious ethical violations and potential theft of intellectual property. I'm more concerned about national security implications, Agent Reed replied. Our intelligence suggests that advanced quantum technologies have been developed here that could have weapons applications. Kellen activated the temporal field, and suddenly the lab filled with ghostly figures from the past week. Agent Reed, I'd like you to meet Dr. Pemberton and the representatives from Nexus Dynamics. The federal agent watched in stunned silence as the temporal echoes revealed the conspiracy to steal Kellen's research. Her expression grew darker with each revelation. This is exactly what we suspected, Agent Reed said. Nexus Dynamics has been trying to acquire quantum technologies through unofficial channels. We've been tracking their activities for months. Then you'll be interested to know that they were planning to militarize my temporal observation technology, Kellen said. Imagine the intelligence advantages of being able to observe any conversation that ever took place in a specific location. My God, Agent Reed breathed. The espionage implications alone, ... which is why I made sure they could never access the core technologies, Kellen continued. Every patent application, every technical specification, every line of code, it's all protected by quantum encryption tied to my biometric signature. Dr. Ashworth looked puzzled. What does that mean? It means that the technology only works for me, Kellen explained. The quantum field generators respond to my specific brainwave patterns. The temporal displacement algorithms are encoded with my genetic markers, Dr. Pemberton, and Nexus. Dynamics were planning to steal a system that's literally impossible for anyone else to operate. Agent Reed's phone buzzed. She answered it, listened intently, then hung up with a grim expression. Mr. Brewster, we just raided Nexus Dynamics headquarters. They had detailed plans for your quantum lab, including specifications for weapons, applications. Plans that are completely useless without me, Kellen said with satisfaction. But there's something else you need to know. The temporal observation technology isn't just for looking into the past. He manipulated the controls, and suddenly the lab filled with images of the future, ghostly figures moving through the space, having conversations that hadn't happened yet. This is impossible, Agent Reed whispered. You're observing future events. Probable future events, Kellen corrected. The quantum field can calculate the most likely outcomes based on current trajectory patterns. It's not perfect, free, will still exist, but it's accurate enough to be useful. The future images showed federal agents arresting Dr. Pemberton, Nexus Dynamics executives being led away in handcuffs, and news reporters broadcasting stories about the teenage genius who exposed a conspiracy to steal quantum technologies. You knew this was going to happen, Dr. Ashworth realized. You knew they were coming to arrest you. I knew they were coming to investigate, Kellen corrected. Whether they arrested me or recruited me depended on how I handled the situation. Agent Reed's expression shifted from suspicion to respect. You've been planning this entire confrontation. 4 weeks, Kellen confirmed. I let Dr. Pemberton and Nexus Dynamics think they were in control, while I built an unbreakable case against them. Every conversation, every meeting, every illegal agreement, it's all documented in the temporal field. And now you're offering to cooperate with the federal government? Agent Reed asked. I'm offering to work with people who respect my intelligence and my rights, Kellen replied. The question is, are you those people? Agent Reed was quiet for a long moment, then smiled. Mr. Brewster, I think the Department of Energy would be very interested in discussing a legitimate partnership with you, one that recognizes your contributions and protects your interests. I'd like that, Kellen said. But first, I think there's something else you need to see. He adjusted the temporal field one more time, and suddenly they were looking at images from the far future, decades ahead. The figures were older, more distinguished, but recognizable. Dr. Ashworth gasped as she saw herself accepting a Nobel Prize, with Kellen standing beside her on the stage. Is that a probable future? Kellen said with a grin. One where we work together to revolutionize human understanding of time and space. One where I'm not just the janitor's son who got lucky, but a scientist who changed the world. Agent Reed's radio crackled. Agent Reed, we have Dr. Pemberton in custody. Nexus Dynamics is under federal investigation. The Attorney General wants to speak with you immediately. Tell him I'll be there in an hour, Agent Reed replied. And tell him we've found something much bigger than corporate espionage. She turned to Kellen. Mr. Brewster, I think you're about to become a very important person. I already am, Kellen replied quietly. People are just starting to notice. The auditorium of Meridian Prep Academy was packed beyond capacity. Students, faculty, parents, and media representatives filled every seat, while camera crews lined the walls. The atmosphere crackled with anticipation as Headmaster Octavius Blackthorne stepped to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen, he began, his voice carrying across the hushed crowd. Today we witness something unprecedented in the history of education. We gather to honor a student whose achievements have not only brought recognition to our institution, but have fundamentally changed our understanding of what's possible. Kellen sat in the front row, wearing a new suit that his mother had insisted on buying despite their tight budget. Beside him, Dr. Ashworth beamed with pride, while Agent Reed sat nearby in an official capacity. 3 days ago, Headmaster Blackthorne continued, federal agents uncovered a conspiracy that could have robbed our student of his rightful recognition. Today, we set the record straight. The headmaster gestured to the large screen behind him, which displayed patent documents and scientific publications. Kellen Brewster, age 17, holds 6 patents in quantum physics, has published 3 peer-reviewed papers in the Journal of Theoretical Physics, and has been invited to present his research at the International Conference on Quantum Mechanics in Geneva. A murmur of amazement rippled through the audience. Many of the students had never imagined that one of their classmates was operating at such a level. But more importantly, the headmaster continued, Mr. Brewster has shown us that genius doesn't conform to our expectations or prejudices. It doesn't announce itself with fanfare or dress itself in expensive clothes. Sometimes, it appears quietly, modestly, and challenges us to look beyond our assumptions. Dr. Ashworth stood to address the crowd. When I first arrived at Meridian Prep, I thought I was inheriting a well-funded but conventional physics program. Instead, I discovered that a 17-year-old student had single-handedly created one of the most advanced quantum research facilities in the world. She paused, letting that sink in. Kellen didn't just build a lab, he pioneered technologies that major corporations and government agencies couldn't replicate. He did it while maintaining a 4.0 GPA, tutoring younger students, and, yes, helping with custodial duties to earn money for his family. The audience erupted in applause. Kellen's parents, sitting in the second row, wiped away tears of pride and relief. Agent Reed took the podium next. The Department of Energy doesn't typically address high school assemblies, but this is an exceptional case. Mr. Brewster's research has implications for national security, clean energy, and space exploration. At 17, he's achieved what most PhD candidates only dream of. She looked directly at Kellen. More importantly, he's shown integrity and wisdom beyond his years. When he could have sold his technologies to the highest bidder, he chose to protect them. When he could have sought revenge against those who tried to steal from him, he chose justice instead. The crowd gave another round of applause. Kellen felt overwhelmed by the recognition, but also determined to use it responsibly. Now, Agent Reed continued, I'm pleased to announce that the Department of Energy is establishing a new program, the Brewster Fellowship for Young Quantum Researchers. This program will provide full scholarships and research funding for students who demonstrate exceptional ability in quantum physics, regardless of their background or circumstances. The applause was thunderous. Kellen stood, his heart racing, with emotion and possibility. When the crowd quieted, Headmaster Blackthorne invited Kellen to the podium. The young man walked across the stage with steady steps, his confidence earned through years of quiet determination. 3 years ago, Kellen began, I walked into this school knowing I didn't look like what people expected from a Meridian Prep student. I was right, I didn't look like their expectations. I exceeded them. Laughter and applause filled the auditorium. But this isn't just about me, Kellen continued. It's about every student who's been underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed because of how they look, where they come from, or what their parents do for a living. It's about proving that intelligence and determination matter more than assumptions and prejudices. He paused, gathering his thoughts. The quantum technologies I've developed aren't just scientific achievements, they're tools for expanding human potential. The temporal observation systems can help us learn from the past and plan for the future. The quantum field generators could revolutionize everything from medicine to space travel. The audience listened in rapt attention as Kellen outlined his vision for the future. But technology is only as good as the people who use it, he said. That's why I'm announcing the formation of the Meridian Quantum Initiative, a program that will bring together young researchers from all backgrounds to work on projects that benefit humanity. Dr. Ashworth smiled as she realized what Kellen was proposing. We're going to make Meridian Prep Academy the premier destination for quantum research education, Kellen continued. Not just for the wealthy or the well-connected, but for anyone with the intelligence and drive to push the boundaries of what's possible. He looked out at the audience, seeing faces that reflected hope and inspiration. To my fellow students who feel invisible or undervalued or not, to the teachers who see potential in unexpected places, thank you. To the parents who sacrifice for their children's education, your investment is paying dividends you never imagined. The standing ovation lasted nearly 5 minutes. When it finally subsided, Kellen had one more surprise. And now, he said with a grin, I'd like to show you something that will make this the most memorable assembly in Meridian Prep history. He activated a small device in his pocket, and suddenly, the auditorium filled with shimmering light. The quantum field generators in the lab 3 floors above were projecting a localized temporal field throughout the building. Ghostly figures appeared throughout the auditorium, temporal echoes of past assemblies, graduation ceremonies, and significant moments in the school's history. The audience gasped as they watched the school's founders, distinguished alumni, and celebrated achievements from decades past materialize around them. This is our history, Kellen said, as the temporal echoes swirled around the amazed crowd. And this is our future. The echoes shifted to show probable future students working in advanced laboratories, graduates accepting prestigious awards, and Meridian Prep Academy becoming a beacon of innovation and opportunity. We're not just remembering the past or dreaming about the future, Kellen concluded. We're actively creating it, and we're doing it together. As the temporal field faded and the echoes disappeared, the auditorium erupted in the loudest applause in the school's history. Kellen had done more than vindicate himself. He had transformed how everyone in that room saw possibility and potential. 6 months later, Meridian Prep Academy was unrecognizable. The halls buzzed with activity as students from around the world arrived for the inaugural Meridian Quantum Initiative. The program had attracted applicants from every continent, with selection based purely on merit and potential rather than ability to pay. Kellen stood in the newly expanded quantum laboratory, now occupying an entire floor of the building. The space hummed with the energy of a dozen different experiments running simultaneously. Students worked alongside established researchers, their age differences meaningless in the face of shared curiosity and discovery. The photon entanglement array is showing remarkable stability, reported Zara Al-Rashid, a 16-year-old from Dubai whose theoretical work on quantum mechanics had earned her a spot in the program. We might be able to achieve instantaneous communication across interstellar distances. Excellent, Kellen replied, moving to check her calculations. How's the temporal field integration coming along? Better than expected, answered Dmitry Volkov, a 17-year-old from Moscow, who had been living in poverty before the program discovered his exceptional abilities. The quantum coherence levels are holding steady, even during temporal displacement events. Dr. Ashworth entered the lab, followed by a group of visitors from the European Space Agency. The quantum program had attracted attention from space agencies worldwide, all interested in the potential applications for deep space exploration. Mr. Brewster, Dr. Ashworth said, our guests would like to see the long-range temporal observation system. Kellen nodded and led the group to the central observation chamber. The technology had evolved significantly since his first breakthrough, now capable of observing events across vast distances and time periods. The system works by creating quantum entanglement between particles here and particles at the target location, Kellen explained as he activated the controls. Time isn't linear, so we can observe any moment that occurred at any entangled location. The chamber filled with images from deep space, distant galaxies, alien star systems, and phenomena that defied conventional understanding. But what made the visitors gasp was the appearance of structures that were clearly artificial. "Are those?" one of the ESA representatives began. "Extraterrestrial constructions," Kellen confirmed. "The temporal field has detected evidence of intelligent life throughout the galaxy. Some of these civilizations are far more advanced than we realized." Dr. Ashworth had seen these images before, but they still filled her with awe. "The implications for human understanding of our place in the universe are staggering." "But that's not the most remarkable discovery," Kellen continued. He adjusted the temporal field to focus on a specific region of space, and suddenly the chamber filled with images of Earth, but not the Earth they knew. "This is our planet, as it will appear in approximately 200 years, Kellen explained. "The quantum field calculations show probable future timelines based on current trajectories." The future Earth was transformed. Cities floated in the sky, connected by streams of energy. The oceans were cleaner, the atmosphere clear, and humanity had clearly mastered technologies that seemed impossible today. "How is this possible?" one visitor asked. "The quantum technologies we're developing here are the foundation for everything you see," Kellen replied. "Clean energy systems, anti-gravity transportation, instantaneous communication across space. It all starts with understanding how to manipulate quantum fields." Zara looked up from her calculations. "Kellen, we're getting some unusual readings from the Mars observation array." The temporal field shifted to show the red planet, but instead of the barren landscape they expected, they saw a thriving human colony. Domed cities dotted the surface, connected by transport tubes and surrounded by green spaces. "This is Mars in 30 years, Kellen said. "The quantum technologies we're developing will make interplanetary colonization not just possible, but practical." Dr. Ashworth addressed the visiting dignitaries. "Gentlemen, what you're seeing is the future of human civilization, and it's being developed by teenagers who were underestimated, overlooked, or dismissed by conventional educational systems." One of the ESA representatives, Dr. Werner Klaus, shook his head in amazement. "Mr. Brewster, your work is beyond anything we've achieved in our most advanced laboratories. How did you accomplish this?" "By not accepting limitations," Kellen replied. "By refusing to believe that age, background, or circumstances determine what's possible, and by working with people who share that belief." He gestured to the diverse group of young researchers working throughout the lab. "Every student here has a story of being underestimated." Zara was told that girls in her culture couldn't pursue advanced physics. Dmitri was living on the streets before we found him. Maya was dismissed by her teachers as a dreamer. But look at what they've accomplished when given the opportunity. Dr. Klaus nodded thoughtfully. "The European Space Agency would like to propose a partnership. We want to establish a joint research facility that combines your quantum technologies with our space exploration capabilities." "I'd welcome that," Kellen replied, "but with conditions. Any partnership must include full scholarships for students from underrepresented backgrounds. The future we're building needs diverse perspectives and voices." "Agreed," Dr. Klaus said. "Immediately. What else?" "All research findings must be shared openly with the global scientific community," Kellen continued. "These technologies are too important to be hoarded by any single nation or organization." Dr. Ashworth smiled proudly. Even as Kellen's achievements brought him international recognition and lucrative offers, he remained committed to his principles. "There's one more thing," Kellen said. "The temporal field has shown us that humanity's future depends on how we handle the next crucial decades. Climate change, resource depletion, social inequality. These challenges require quantum leaps in technology and thinking." He activated the temporal field one more time, showing images of possible futures where humanity failed to address these. challenges. The contrast with the positive timeline was stark and sobering. We're not just developing technologies, Kellen concluded. We're choosing which future becomes reality, and we're doing it by refusing to accept that any young person's potential should be limited by circumstances beyond their control. As the visitors left the lab, discussing partnership agreements and research collaborations, Kellen felt the weight of responsibility and possibility. He had gone from being mistaken for a janitor to being recognized as one of the most important young scientists in the world. But more importantly, he had proven that talent and determination could overcome any obstacle, and that the future belonged to those brave enough to envision it and work to make it real. 5 years later, the Meridian Quantum Initiative had become a global phenomenon. What started as a single program at a prep school had evolved into a network of research centers spanning 6 continents. The floating spires of the Meridian Institute rose above the original school building, their quantum-powered architecture defying gravity and conventional engineering. Kellen, now 22 and holding multiple advanced degrees, stood in the observation deck of the central spire. The view encompassed not just the transformed campus below, but the city that had grown around it. Where once there had been ordinary suburban neighborhoods, now gleamed a hub of quantum research and development that rivaled Silicon Valley. The Mars colony construction is ahead of schedule, reported Dr. Zara Al-Rushid, now his co-director of interplanetary research. The quantum transportation network should be operational within 18 months. And the temporal communication array? Kellen asked. We've successfully established contact with our own timeline from 17 different points in the future, answered Dr. Dmitry Volkov, who had become the world's leading expert on temporal mechanics. The implications for preventing catastrophic events are extraordinary. Dr. Ashworth entered the observation deck, her hair now silver, but her eyes bright with the excitement of discovery. She carried a folder marked with the seal of the Nobel Committee. The committee has reached a decision, she announced. The Nobel Prize in Physics is being awarded jointly to the Meridian Quantum Initiative for revolutionary advances in temporal mechanics and quantum field manipulation that have fundamentally altered human understanding of space and time. The room erupted in cheers and applause. It was the first time in history that a Nobel Prize had been awarded to a collaborative youth initiative rather than individual researchers. But that's not all, Dr. Ashworth continued with a smile. The committee is also establishing a new category, the Nobel Prize for Transformative Education. It recognizes programs that revolutionize how we discover and develop human potential. Kellen felt tears of pride and gratitude. Dr. Ashworth, you should accept that award. You were the first person to truly see what we were building here. No, she replied firmly. This belongs to every student who was told they weren't smart enough. Every young person who was underestimated. Every researcher who believed that potential exists everywhere if we're willing to look for it. Through the observation deck's quantum-enhanced windows, they could see the bustling activity of the campus below. Students from every nation and background worked together in laboratories that would have been science fiction just a few years earlier. The diversity that had once been seen as a challenge was now recognized as the initiative's greatest strength. Kellen, Zara said, activating the temporal observation system, there's something you need to see. The deck filled with images from the present day, not the immediate present, but the global present. Around the world, similar quantum research centers were operating, all following the Meridian model of inclusive excellence. Young researchers who had been dismissed or overlooked were making breakthrough discoveries that were transforming human civilization. The ripple effects are beyond anything we projected, Dmitry observed. Your decision to share all research openly has accelerated human development by decades. The temporal field shifted to show the near future just 2 years ahead. The images revealed a world where quantum technologies had solved the climate crisis, where instantaneous transportation had eliminated geographical barriers, and where communication with other intelligent species had begun. We're not just observing the future anymore, Kellen realized. We're actively creating it. Dr. Ashworth pointed to one particular image from the temporal field. Look at this. The scene showed a familiar auditorium, the same one where Kellen had been recognized 5 years earlier. But now it was filled with hundreds of young researchers from the global network, all presenting their discoveries to an audience that included world leaders, Nobel laureates, and representatives from newly contacted alien civilizations. This is happening next month, Dr. Ashworth explained. The first interstellar conference on quantum cooperation. Species from 12 different star systems will be participating. Kellen watched in amazement as the temporal images showed him, standing at the podium. But this time, he wasn't alone. Beside him stood representatives from civilizations that had been waiting for humanity to develop quantum communication capabilities. They've been watching us, Zara said softly. Some of these species have been monitoring human development for millennia, waiting for us to reach a